Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
With all the noise out there, it's hard to know who to listen to. Let us help you reach your business and professional goals. Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com for more information. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Paradigm Playbook. I'm Dave Kozak alongside my co-host, Mr. Steve Cook.
Good morning, David. I got to admit, I'm a little scared this morning. I've got homework put in front of me before the podcast, but let's do it.
As usual, Steve and I are talking throughout the week, trying to figure out what subjects to cover and what matters. And we decided we're going to change directions a little bit today and do some show and tell and talk about some of the tools that we've used to improve our businesses, make decisions, and I think make us better entrepreneurs. I'm not going to necessarily get into how I've used them. I'm going to try and explain the tools. We've got 4 of them. I don't know how many we're going to get through. This may be a 4-segment podcast. This may be done in one, but we've been speaking recently about marketing. We've talked strategy. We've talked implementation. We've talked hiring and firing. We've talked customer service. We've talked sales. We've sort of talked through the gamut of subjects in business. Not that we've gotten granular in all of them, but I think as an entrepreneur, one thing that I always appreciate when I go to a seminar or a workshop or a conference is the golden nugget I can take away. And so each of these documents is a golden nugget that I took from somewhere along the lines of being an entrepreneur that they've held true across the board. And they've been applicable tools that I could use to improve process, procedure, business, management, whatever it was.
I think when you're at a seminar, workshop, or even just a one-on-one meeting with a mentor, the critical thing that it makes you do is shut up. Yeah. And so, and sometimes the key piece of critical decision making is how much time you spend listening to outside opinions or other opinions, or even just processing someone else's opinion.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be difficult too, because you can be hyped up on a idea, and someone tells you it's stupid, and you're like, well, no, it's not. And you get defensive and the ego comes in, and sometimes it's not that it's stupid, it's that you had the wrong look at it. You had something, there was a perspective that you weren't seeing. There was a lens that you weren't viewing it from.
And sometimes it flips on you and someone else says something and you say, well, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But, sometimes the stupid idea leads you to, get to the point that you're thinking about something and, oh my God, that wasn't so stupid after all.
Yeah, it's I like to call it soak time. Sometimes I just need soak time. So the first tool that I want to talk about is what I call a long-term marketing opportunity filter. And I can't cite where I got it from. I don't know it. Again, a mentor at some point forwarded it to me and said, hey, this is what we use to make those types of decisions after a conversation we had. And there you go. But the cool part about the long-term marketing opportunity filter and how we use it is you rank everything on a 1 to 5, and there's if you just imagine a spreadsheet, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns and an infinite number of rows depending on the amount of ideas you have, right? And so the first column is the opportunity. The second column is the return on investment. Third column is ease of implementation. Fourth column is cost. Fifth column is scalability. Sixth column is time until return, and then you total them up. And each of those has a value of 5. Okay. And so at the end of it, right, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you're counting should be 25. If it's a perfect idea and it's all those things. And so what we always do is we sit down and we talk about return on investment, right? And you may not know the number, but you have a good idea that, man, if you can penetrate that market, or if you can get that done and it's effective, it's a great return. So if the return is going to be very good, then you go 5. If it's going to be okay, it's going to be a 3. If it's going to be a return, but you're not sure it's going to pan out, you scale it, right? The second one that we talk about is ease of implementation. And I think this is one that gets overlooked by entrepreneurs constantly. Great idea. I can get it going. But really, how long and how much effort is it going to take to launch, and how easily can you steer the boat in that direction, right?
But you can look at it the other way too, that it is easy to implement, but the ROI wasn't there. So if you go, I'm just thinking about my world, the sports world. There's things, someone comes in and says, we should start doing a class for this. And, oh yeah, that's easy. I've got the teacher. Let's go. But the cost of doing it, there's just no return. Yeah. And we got into it too easily.
Yeah, no, without question. And so you're sort of going across, and I'll tell you how we use it in decision making. The next segment is cost, right? So, the idea is you're going to send out $10,000 worth of mailers. Mm-hmm. Do you, first of all, is it in the budget? Is that a high cost to your marketing? Is it a low cost, right? Facebook posts versus mailer, right? One's a very high cost, one's a very low cost. And so you're judging low cost is the higher number, high cost is the lower number. So you got a $20,000 idea and your marketing budget's 10. That's a pretty high cost idea. So you market a number 1 or a 2, whatever, right? Scalability is it easily repeatable? Is it a systematic process? Is it something you can do regularly, and it's not going to take the same amount of effort to launch and do day 1 that it does the 10th time you do it, right?
Okay.
And then the last one is time until return on investment. So, is it a marketing strategy you're putting in play for a year and you're giving it a year until you expect a return? Or is it something where, it's almost instantaneous, right? I put up a new sign cost $3,000. It was very easy. And all of a sudden traffic starts flowing in, and so you're totaling those across. So I had a couple of different things we were working on at the time, and one was a 21, and 2 were 17s. And so immediately what that tells me is I've got one that it is a legitimate opportunity. Or a better opportunity than the others, just a way to sort, right? But the problem with the one I had, it was a new seminar we were going to do, and the ease of implementation was the hardest part. And so then you go to your management world and you say, okay, if it's going to be tough to implement, Steve, who do I have to help? Who is going to own the project? Who's going to be in charge of it? And what am I taking off their plate so that they can get that done? Because very rarely does an entrepreneur have excess bodies laying around, right? It just doesn't happen. You're typically trying to manage not only the budget, but the project work and the daily activity work at the same time, right? So we always talk about in our business, everybody has their day job, but then I always anticipate and expect people to be able to do extra. And once you max somebody out and then you throw a difficult project on them, you've got to consider that. And so the ease of implementation is one that requires a whole different sorting mechanism, right?
Yeah, I think it's something that we neglect a lot. So the ease of implementation takes in my world, takes into consideration conversion time. So it's like, we're, real guilty of scheduling a new class on every hour with no transition time in between. And then we get upset that it's too crowded here. We don't have enough parking. Whereas if we either overlapped or spaced them, maybe there's an ease of implementation. So we can schedule on our court transition from basketball to volleyball. That's a great one. But there's an equipment changeover in there that has to be taking place. I always tell the story about my daughter's a triathlete, and so she swims, runs, and bikes, and always working on a better time. And I said, what's the critical factor that you need to fix? You need to swim better. What do you need? And she said, it's transitions. My fault lies in the transitions, which is changing
sneakers, apparel, clothes.
All that. And it's the same thing in the Children's Activity Center. You're changing, from 5-year-olds playing soccer to adults playing basketball. There's a changeover. There's moving benches. There's, picking up leftover lost
snacks
and found
and goodies
items.
and whatever
there's
else.
all kinds of things. So I think that if we can fit all that into the decision-making process, so I guess that goes all into ease of implementation. So that factor, and I think maybe we think it's easy and we overlook the difficulty in getting to that point.
It's typically the last, and this was a huge aha moment for me in using this tool, is that I have a great idea, but it's going to take me 6 months to get it off the ground, and it's going to take an incredible amount of work, and I don't have proof that it's going to make the return.
Yeah.
Right. And so in any type of marketing environment specifically, but really in any decision making, you've got to consider that sort of build time, or the simple time it takes to get the thing from concept to implemented, and then you can look at return, right? Because this one has, and this is a crazy one, because the time until return is very quick once implementation happens. But the implementation for this particular project could have been 6 to 8 months. And so, but after that 6 to 8 months, we would expect immediately that there's a return on it. So it's funny to think about time until return as being a good mark, but ease of implementation being a tough mark. And they're definitely connected.
So, and I don't know whether it comes in under, time until return or scalability, but sustainability is another one that kind of bridges the two of them.
100%.
And we're saying that sometimes, it's easy for us to get the first 20 students. Mm-hmm. But then getting that to increase by 5% month over month for consistent 3 years, that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah. And you think about that same concept. Okay, you can get the first 20. Can you get the next 20? And the next 20. And if sometimes
we don't even look that deeply into this process. So I think that's part of scalability that would go in there. So maybe it's not scalable. And if you have such a specific thing, we have 3 people coming to us that want to rent space for baton twirling. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to start a class on baton twirling, and I'm guaranteed these 3 students. I'm not guaranteed anymore over that. I don't know how big that industry is, or where that stands, or where I can go with that. But until I go through this process, so I'm loving your filters here.
Well, and I think about, Steve, you've got an hour every week that's just dead. Mm-hmm. And you're like, man, if we could just get somebody in there. And all of a sudden you go out and you get a group of 20 people in there, but you only had 1 hour to give up. Right. And all your other lines are profitable, and they're historically profitable and scalable. And then you have this one thing, and all of a sudden it launches real quick. Well, you have a scalability function, and that then becomes profit margin measurements, right? Where you're going, okay, well, if I walk away from this and I can duplicate that, what's the profit difference here? And so this is the starting point. This is not the ending point. This is a way to help sort the thoughts, the ideas, and start to give you some pathways towards the next step to me, which is really breaking down the pros and cons and going into some more systematic, EOS type conversations.
Okay, so let's take this. Yeah, you're really turning my head to mush with this right now. So, but we had this problem all the time in my sales career. So we sell a specific product line, and someone comes in and says, you know what, we should add this one product. And we go through this process, and that one product is scalable. But the time pressure it takes on selling the other things So we're seeing a diminished return on something else due to it. We have this, I'll air some of my challenges. So we have a rapidly growing cricket program in our facility right now. And it's putting pressure on some of our baseball instruction because of the time demands. Now, the cricket is bringing in 15 children at a time for a class, and baseball is bringing in 7. Now, we're historically a baseball facility, and I'm a baseball guy. So I'm not giving up on that, but it is putting pressure that I have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, without question, right?
Yeah, it's and I think you can go in some directions that are easily, you can start them easy. There is a return, moderately scalable, but you still don't want to do it.
Help us grow by sharing and tagging the Paradigm Playbook podcast on social media. We value your support. Yeah, no doubt. And again, that becomes the tradition and the norms and the egos and the measuring of one side versus the other, right? And so there's a lot to take in. And I think what you have to do after you've come to the conclusion, hey, this is the opportunity that we're going to take on, right? I have another tool, and this one's from Strategic Coach. Somebody passed it to me and asked me to fill it out for a meeting that we were going to have, and it's called the impact filter, right? So we're filtering here. It was a pretty easy concept of filtering down. And so the impact filter, you come from your long-term opportunity filter, where all your ideas get sorted out. They all get a value number, and you talk and analyze, and you pick one. And so in the top line, you have the project and the focus. And so you name out what it is. In this case, it was daycare seminars. And then the purpose, what is the purpose? What do you want to accomplish? What is the motivation behind doing it? Why is that important? What difference is it going to make in your business? What impact will it have on the business, on you personally, whatever it may be? And then the ideal outcome. So what does done look like, right? What did begin with the end in mind? Back to Stephen Covey, right? What is the completed and what is the payoff for it? I've started things, implemented them, and then I've been the slave to them, right? Had I in the conception, that was not my intention, but it happens, right? And so then the second piece is, what possible action do you take? What's the best result and what's the risk, right? So the main pro and the main con of it. And then you lay out what they call the success criteria. What specific results must be true for this project to be considered a success? So you are laying out the end goal. You're laying out the best parts, the worst parts, the challenges, and the impact in it. And so you've taken your idea, you've filtered it down. Now you're using an impact filter and you're defining the project, right? And so you're sort of going through it. And what it does is it makes you take a systematic approach, right? If you get back to anything that good businesses do, is their systems, their processes are reliable, repeatable, and scalable, right? That's the goal, right? Now, there are other concepts in this that I think matter, right? The ELF, are you familiar with the ELF philosophy?
No.
So ELF, ELF, is it easy, lucrative, and fun? And so if you're doing something that's easy, lucrative, and fun, you'll always have motivation. It won't be one of those energy vampires. It'll continuously provide for you. Right now, that's not to say all business parts are easy, lucrative, and fun, right? But if it's not easy, lucrative, and fun, can you make it that way? Can you outsource that? Can you have someone else do that piece of it? But easy, lucrative, and fun. So again, you're sorting the idea, the opportunity. You're then measuring the impact it's going to have. And so now you have sort of a baseline. In the back of your brain, I think that ELF philosophy should maintain, right? Is it going to be easy, lucrative, and fun? And I think you have to measure that and temper that at the same time, right? No major project is easy, right? The goal is once the project is complete and it's on, what I would call autopilot, which I'll talk about in the next document. Is it then easy, lucrative, and fun?
I also think that, it's an interesting concept. I wasn't familiar with it, but I think that every function within maybe every business are interrelated. So you're not making a decision to add something new. So it could feed an ELF function within your business, or it could detract from an ELF function. So I think you have to be careful and protective of those. But everything has a relationship to something else. I'll go through our baseball thing. Our lessons feed our batting cages.
Mm-hmm.
Our batting cages feed our snack bar. Our snack bar keeps people in the business longer. Staying in the business longer feeds the batting cages. More batting cages feeds a need for lessons. So everything is tied in. So when we look at adding something else in, you have to, to go back to your first filter, so that's going to affect the sustainability, that if it's detracting from something else, you're not going to stick with it that long. So you have to kind of label that in there. And maybe that takes you from a 5 to a 4 in scalability, because mentally, and I think whatever you do, you have to, measure this as an alignment with your mission and vision of your business. And if, something, it's like, I've been subject to this all the time. As an entrepreneur, I think we're all subject to this. You see a great opportunity. You know what? I can do that. You know what? All of a sudden I'm selling flower pots. Mm-hmm. You know what? It's like, because I can and it's easy. Has nothing to do with my business. Yeah. So I think you have to be careful of those things that pull you away from it. If you start a business, to sell insurance and do financial management, then, maybe you shouldn't, have used cars, on your lot.
Yeah,
so,
no doubt.
Anyway.
So there's a couple other tools in between here, but there's one that, the Vision Traction Organizer from EOS, all those things are great. But my probably favorite tool that I use on a regular basis, and we try and put everything into it, is the Process Designer. And this is from Quantum Club. Quantum Club is an organization that is sort of like a big coaching organization to the insurance world. And specifically this one was property and casualty, but I think they sort of touch on all insurance. But so the Process Designer, and everybody's like, oh, well, do you really need to do it? Yes. If you want something to be adhered to, if we go back to last week and we were talking about Will Gallardo and the
hospitality,
unreasonable hospitality, and every step in that restaurant was choreographed. Mm-hmm. If you're passing a waiter, it's choreographed how you pass each other. It's when someone sits at a table, it's the way they put the meals on the plate. It's the way the silverware is lined up. All that stuff. It's all choreographed, right? That's all process-driven, reliable, repeatable, scalable results. And so to be successful in business, you've got to have those, right? You just have to have those processes. And I mean, I'm sort of embarrassed to say how granular I've gotten on some of the processes,
mm-hmm.
but they do it every time. It's adhered to, right? You hand it to someone and they say, oh, here's the process. And so the Process Designer starts with the name of the process, the date, who's the process manager, huge piece. Because if you end up being the process manager on everything, you end up at the right. Peter principle. Yeah. You rise to your highest level of incompetence. So who's going to manage it? Who's getting the assignment of that? What's the purpose of the process? What are the results you want from the process? Who's the customer, and what experience do we want the customer to have? That's on the left column. And then it literally is action step. Who does it? When do they do it? Action step. Who does it? When do they do it? All the way around. Until and again, it could be an infinite number of actions that have to be taken. It could be a a person walks a piece of paper and hands it to someone. The next person then uploads that into their file structure, takes a note on it, and then emails somebody. Like every step of the process so that you don't have to go back and say, well, you were supposed to do this, right? And so you're not training, you're just handing people the process that you want adhered to. Taking a payment, right? What do you want to have happen? You know, if you've ever been to a restaurant, a lot of times they have a little spike next to the card machine, right? And all the receipts, after you sign them, they go on the spike. And then at the end of that day, somebody is taking that spike and they're reconciling their receipts with their credit card processing, right? It's a simple process, but one that needs to be adhered to. So to me, once you have something that is in play and you're committed to it, you need to figure out how many processes are involved in it. And a lot of times in our world, one process ends at the start of the next process, right? We put up that firewall and we say, okay, this is done. Now it gets forwarded to accounting, or now it gets forwarded to, and then they have their process they have to follow.
So, and the process is put together and taught and adhered to so that little decisions don't have to be made along the way.
Bingo.
And it's usually when you break the process. So, you know, you didn't hand that sheet to that manager and you say, yeah, but I told him. Well, it's not the same. So then the next spot along that process gets broken because that paper wasn't created. So it all starts, we do this in just kind of facility maintenance in our facilities. It's here's the inspection process where this is expected to be done on Monday. And the process includes what if it's not done on Monday? And so I think that happens all the time. And it's, you know, I talk to people all the time that are running facilities and they say this equipment, and I say, what went wrong with it? And they say, well, it just broke. I say, yeah, nothing just breaks.
Yeah.
You know, things wear out, they're mishandled, they're mistreated, they're ignored, but
not maintained, whatever
they don't
it is.
Just break. So I think that, you know, so this process is amazing. And I wish I could say that I have anything in my business that is this detailed. But it should be, and it could be.
Well, and here's a cool thing that I did, right? When I first got this, I was like, wait a minute, you want me to list out every single step? And when I got into business, we didn't have the CRMs. We didn't have all of the automations. It just didn't have it. So I wrote out, like, if we had a lead for home and auto insurance, or if we had a life insurance lead, or we had an annuity or a mutual fund, how we deal with them, who's responsible, who's licensed to deal with it, how we're going to go through call, like, and it would say day one, phone call, if either leave a message or not, if they call back, and then it had a process for the callback, or it had a process for the rest of it. And then at the end of it, it was like, okay, send an email or send the quote and put them on the newsletter or drop them into something that's a repetitive marketing campaign. Well, along the way, we've invested an incredible amount of money in technology. So now the process ends with, or put them into, drip campaign, or put them into some marketing campaign, or close the deal and move them through the new business process, right? So you go from prospect to sale process to new business process, which our new business process, right? Once you become a client of ours, you're going to get a 21-day follow-up call where we're going to make sure everything is tight and right. You've got everything you need. You don't have any questions. We're going to set you on track for the next. We're going to tell you what we're going to do, and then we're going to execute that. So I started with very rigid paper processes. And along the way, I was able to take out steps because of automation, or because of workflows, or because of different pieces. So when you're conceiving something, start with a paper process. And if you have the technology to make that no longer a paper process, go ahead and implement it.
I think one of the considerations, and we talk about scalability or growth, and as businesses grow, the stakeholders in every decision get more and more. And what happens is when you start a business and you maybe have a partner and you have 2 or 3 employees, and you're telling everybody, and then you hire a bookkeeper, and then you get an accountant, and then you have a night manager, and all of a sudden, you make a decision to change a lock or the way you clean the bathroom or something like that, and everybody knows about it except the night manager. So it gets skipped, and then there's a problem, and then somebody slips and falls. It's because you went out of process. So I think, I love this topic, and we can dig in deeper, but I think what you need to do is develop the processes, even if it's a paper process. I'm okay with that, but you have to develop it, from the beginning and let the process grow with the company. So if the company, so the company doesn't get ahead of the process, because the lack of process will trip you up.
Yeah, I'll give you the easiest example I could possibly give, Steve. Last week, we have a lockbox outside our office, and it was an old kitty garbage lock. And essentially, if you hit the combination of numbers on the lockbox for the key to the door, if you hit them in any order, so it was 40321 was the actual combo. But if you hit 12340, opened. If you hit 32401, opened. And I talked to my partner. I was like, listen, find me one of these that you like. He's more into security than I am. And I said, send it to me, and we got to change that. And he goes, I can't believe I forgot about that. I hate that stupid lockbox. It's such a piece of garbage. And I was like, all right, well, just send me a new one. So anyway, last Friday before I left, I changed the key.
Oh.
And changed the code.
Oh, no.
And changed the lockbox. Well, I've had 3 text messages. And I was at my phone, which is a rarity. I was at my phone to answer for 3 different people trying to get me. Like, number one, the cleaning company came Friday night, and they were like, how do we get into your building? Second one, I had an employee leaving last night, late at like 9:30. And he texts, hey, I don't have a key, and there's a new lockbox. Like, what's the code? And this morning I had an employee that wanted to come in early, and they didn't have the code. And so, like, again, the communication process is what failed on that one. Like, and what I should have done was you need to communicate. The process is, if we change a code or a lock, we communicate with the employees that it affects, right?
Which is a pain in the neck. And, I'm sorry that happened, but, losing, having extra text messages or inconvenience is not the same as losing a customer because
Correct.
That email never went out.
Correct.
Or that you forgot to say thank you, or you didn't confirm an appointment, or so all those things. And, the CRM is in place, but it's not enough. And how many CRMs are out there that are about, 20% used?
Yeah.
You don't use all the functions. I was with Salesforce, which was one of the top CRMs, and I think we probably use 10% of its capabilities.
I also have a massive CRM system, the Salesforce system. Mm. And we use, put it this way, we custom built the entirety of the first one. And now we are spending all of our time undoing the coding to use the off-the-shelf functionality that exists in the system itself. So it's,
So I think with all these things, regardless of the complexity of it, a system used is way, way better than any system could be unused.
Yeah, without question.
You got to jump in.
All right. Well, we're out of time for today, but I'm going to leave a cliffhanger here because this is one of my favorite tools for the head of the company, the entrepreneur, the person making the decision. And that's called the Superman syndrome. And so I think next week, Steve, we talk about the Superman syndrome.
We dig in. Sounds good.
All right, guys, I hope you learned something today. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you can take and apply some of this stuff. As always, please like and share and reach out to us if you have questions. You want to know how we use these tools.
Yeah, we love the comments. Everyone, make it a great day.
Know someone who could benefit from our business expertise? Send them our way. Thank you.